I'm Sandra Garlick, the founder of the Woman Who Achieves Awards 2026, celebrating excellence in business. This is your opportunity to share your story, your achievements, and your goals and aspirations for the future. Plus, entering awards is a fantastic way to boost your visibility in 2026. And this year, there are some brand new questions to really give you value by going through the process. It's a huge reflection piece. Entries are open until midnight on the 15th of February. Just visit womanwho.co.uk/awards for all the information and the entry form.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Today I'm joined by Sandra Garlick. Now, Sandra is a speaker mentor, a visibility strategist, and also founder of the Woman Who Awards. Hi, Sandra. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. And thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
My absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Okay, so before we dive into what you do now, because there's lots of things, lots of questions I want to ask you about that, tell us what got you to this point.
Ooh, big question. Well, this year is the 10th anniversary of my business. So a bit special. Never was intended to be a business. I was a solicitor. I was a late entrant to the profession. I decided to retrain after I'd had my children and found myself as a single parent. And I thought I'd be a solicitor for the rest of my days. But you know, when you get bored in a job and you sit there and you daydream and you jot down things, and I had an ideas book and I knew I wanted to do something for women in business, and I knew I wanted to run an event, and I've been running events for the firms I'd worked for. If there was a seminar to put on or a conference, they'd always come to me and say, "You're so good at this, you do this." And I used to love putting the itineraries together and it sending the invites out. And my events were always really well attended. And then I started organising lunches and things like that. Um, and I just thought I'd be there forever. And then I had a particular bad episode at one firm I worked at, and and I continued to brainstorm all these lovely ideas that you'll do one day, someday, maybe in the future. And I went to the partners, and they said I put an idea to them about a women in business event, and they just said, "We don't think women in business will take off," and that was like red rag to a bull to me. Um,
Goodness,
yeah,
they didn't know
and
you well enough, did they?
didn't. And I did resign, but I was on the hamster wheel. I needed to pay my mortgage. My two sons were about to go to university. I couldn't just become, you know, do the project I wanted to do. So I had to still be a solicitor. So I started my own law firm and then just employed women and then gave them flexible working and let them do things, and went to women in business events and started doing women in business events. And I ran that for 8 years until I realized, maybe similar to your story with your, earlier business, I just didn't enjoy it when I got out of bed in the morning. And I'm a big believer, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, change it. And then a broken ankle led to this business. And out came that ideas book. And here we are 10 years later.
Amazing. And congratulations on 10 years. That is an amazing achievement, isn't it? Lots of celebrations, I'm sure, that we're going to talk about happening this year, all around that. And you know what? We see that a lot, don't we? People who have an ideas book, but it sort of sits there and gathers dust. Nobody actually does anything with it. But I love that you've not got it out once or twice. It keeps coming out and you keep going back to that thing. And do you think you're at that point now where you're doing what you're going to do forever?
Oh no. No, the ideas book now has moved on to my remarkable. So every time I get an idea, I tag it with idea. And the thing with my ideas book, and I've still got the very original one, and I still go back to that as well. I'm really innovative, especially when I'm washing my hair or swimming or doing something where you can't write anything or walking the dog. And as soon as I get an idea, I capture it. Or if I'm driving the car, I'll voice note myself and I capture those ideas, but I keep going back to them. And I think, oh God, that was a really rubbish idea. Big line through it, it goes. But I go back to some ideas and think, now's the time. And I believe we evolve over time. and we evolve into, as we get older, and I've got a few decades under my belt now, and as we get older, I think you evolve into doing other things. And I see writing on the horizon, and I've already written a rom-com accidentally, and this is my accidental business, and who knows what accidental projects will come up in the future.
I love that. Accidentally written a rom-com. Okay, why not? I mean, come on, why not?
Well, exactly.
Exactly. I suppose back then, back sort of 10 years ago, when you started supporting women in business and really becoming an advocate for women, and I love that you did everything in terms of your whole business was based around empowering women and recruiting women and giving women rights that you don't get in a lot of businesses even now, isn't it? With working flexibly and all of that type of stuff. Would you say that that was you being quite innovative? As in, was it not happening a lot back then? Based on what your law firm said to you, that they don't think there's something in this women in business, would you say you were one of the early starters in terms
Yes,
of this?
basically there was nothing around at that time. And when I ran that very first event 90 days after the broken ankle, the Federation of Small Businesses approached me and said, we've just about to publish a report on the barriers to women in business, and we'd like you to be an advocate. We'd like you to come down to London, sit on a task force. We'd like you to go back to your region, set up networks and find out what the challenges are. And what I found was, at the time, there were very few women in business networks, very few at that time. Lots of people copied them afterwards, but there were very few. There were very few purely women in business awards, and they were at a much higher level. There was nothing for the startup. There was nothing for women who were going alone, the solopreneurs. And everything I went to was just penguin suits. It was just, you'd walk in and it'd be a wall of men in black tie, and the occasional woman would be there as a token. And I got fed up. Everything I've done has been through, yes, I am innovative, but everything I've done has been through my frustrations at not seeing what I expect to see. So I'm a bit of a rebel in a way, a bit of a, if I don't see something, I'll create it.
Yeah, and that's empowering, isn't it, for other people to see that happening and see that done around them. So when you started to build the business, what were the challenges you were coming up against? What did you find hardest in those early days trying to do something quite innovative?
I think it was because I was in the women in business space, lack of confidence, lack of self-belief. Very early on, I started talking about personal brand, even 10 years ago, and people just didn't get it. People were reticent to come forward. Women at the time believed, and some still believe this, that they had to sit there and wait to be nominated for an award, that one day somebody would nominate them if they were worthy. They didn't realize that everybody, even back then, all those men were nominating themselves. So I had to do a lot of work on confidence, on mindset, and just really be. I believe you can't be what you can't see. And my mission at the start, and still is, to create more women in business role models to inspire others to follow in their footsteps. So there's no point looking at all these women that are, sitting on in the House of Lords, and peers and things like that, because they're too far removed and the celebrities are too far removed. Whereas if you can see a woman that lives around the corner from you, or a woman that maybe you can bump into and have a conversation with, or jump on a Zoom with, that's done something, and you think, well, if she can do it, so can I. That's the role model I want to create. And you do that by people speaking and sharing their stories, and it empowers other women.
Yeah, and it's powerful, isn't it? It's really powerful to see other people doing things and that yeah, they can do it. So I absolutely can. I absolutely can. So when did you start to move more into, not more into, because obviously you still do your awards and that is still an absolute key part of your business, but into supporting people with beyond awards, beyond putting themselves in up for an award and achieving the award. So the more the visibility, the speaking, all the other lovely stuff that you've added into that. How did that come about?
Well, I'd already been mentoring anyway, so I'm a coach and mentor anyway, and I was already doing that through consultancy work alongside being a solicitor and everything else. So I've been mentoring for years, and I would sign up to do volunteer mentoring and all sorts. And then I realized that I was doing some consultancy work as well. And then I realized that actually I had a skill set. and people were inviting me to speak. My first ever speaking gig, I absolutely did everything wrong, and I put people to sleep on the front row, and I vowed never to do that again. And I realized that I got this media training under my belt that I'd never used. I'd only used it while I was practicing as a solicitor. And then I started speaking at women in business events as they started to evolve. And people said to me, "Oh, I wish I could speak like you. I wish I could do that, just stand up and speak." And so I put a few courses on and started doing a few workshops and things. And people started to gravitate towards me and say, "I'd love to learn that." And it just evolved. And then I got invited through the Federation of Small Businesses to go on their board, and I had more media training. And it just evolved from there, really. So that's where the speaker side came from. And I'd been doing business advisory and mentoring through the local Chamber of Commerce. So that sort of came on board. So yeah, it just all started to form, really. And the biggest turning point for me was the pandemic, because it created for me, because all my events died overnight and I had to put them online. I was already working online, but other people didn't get it at the time. So it was a gift to me. And then I created my online membership and I created online courses. And that's where it all started to really just take off from that point.
Yeah. And something else happened in 2020, didn't it?
It did.
Just something very little. Do you want to share with us what happened in 2020?
It was a really weird time because I'd been just little things. I'd started putting myself forward for things. So the first thing I got was Theo Pafaitis SBS. He does the Small Business Sunday, and I got that. So I thought, oh, that's quite good. Then I put myself forward for F Entrepreneurs. I also 100, and I got that in January 2020. And then, unknown to me, I got this phone call from the Cabinet Office, and I was told I was going to be awarded an MBE for my services to women in business. And I was awarded in the New Year's Honours List 2020.
Which is an amazing achievement, isn't it? For you personally, but actually for all of those women that you have supported and continue to support, that is even more saying, if I can do this, you can do this, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if we hadn't been hit by the pandemic, I would have carried on doing what I was doing, running my awards, but I don't think I would have grown the business to the point it is now. I would have got lots of visibility from the MBE, but I think it came for me personally. My dad passed away the first week of the pandemic from cancer, and it gave me that time, that space I needed, plus the events disappearing. I just suddenly thought, well, I can create something here, back to the old ideas book, and out it came, and created an academy. And yeah, it's just evolved from there, really.
Which is fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about visibility, because we all talk about we need to be visible, we need to be visible, but we see it done well, we see it done very unwell. So talk to us a little bit about visibility.
Visibility is not about being everywhere, and visibility isn't about being loud and brash and look at me. Visibility is, I always say, when you're working out a visibility strategy, it's got to be on your terms, because what might feel right for somebody else won't be right for you. And you can't pick up somebody else's visibility strategy and put it into your business. It's got to be relevant to you, your values, what you want to achieve, your objectives, your plan for the year. And then you work out where you need to be visible. And then you give the appearance of being everywhere, even though you're not, because everybody else becomes your advocate. And you've seen those posts on Facebook, can anybody recommend? And you see all the posts come up for all the different names. That's visibility. That's personal brand. That's what's working. And people actually recommend you because they've either worked with you or seen you a lot, but they've seen you in the right spaces. And it's not about going to the biggest, brashest events you can be at and whatever. It's about conversations, it's about connection, it's about building relationships. Once you've built those relationships and you're in the right rooms, then the rest follows.
Absolutely. And I think that's more important now than it's ever been, isn't it, in terms of building those relationships with people.
I've talked about this a lot. LinkedIn is a prime example. You go on LinkedIn, you get the connection request, and a connection request, and then bam, you get that slap in the face, buy my stuff in your inbox. And I always go back to them and say, LinkedIn is all about building relationships. Relationships build trust. Trust builds connection, all those sorts of things. And a lot of people on there just don't get it. Predominantly men, and I'm not man bashing at all here, but we women network in a different way. We're open, we're vulnerable, we have conversations, and we make connections. And those connections, a lot of my clients have become friends. My best friends are friends I've made through business. And it's lovely the way those relationships evolve. And you need those solid foundations. You need those relationships to be able to then move on to the next step where let's work together, those sorts of things.
Yeah, which is perfect, isn't it? And it's interesting you say that because I become friends with a lot of my clients too. And I've actually had people say to me before, oh, you have to be careful making friends with your clients. It's, that client relationship needs to be, client mentor or whatever. But actually, I think it makes the mentoring, the client coach relationship easier. You get to know people better, and the better you know somebody, the more personalized your advice and support can become, can't it?
You have to have boundaries. You have to have,
Absolutely.
when you do work for friends, I'm very careful that I have boundaries now. If they are to pay for something, they pay for something. There's no, I don't do any of this, oh, because you're my friend, you get it free. And there's no expectation of that. So I think that's nice to keep those boundaries in place. But yeah, it's all about connection. It's all about conversation. It's all about building relationships. And, you give before you take is another thing, it being seen as a person that will share information, which will support others. And that's what I love about my events, is that everybody in the room is there to lift everybody else up.
Yeah, yeah. So if I was at the beginning of my journey, would you say that going to events is where I should start in terms of my visibility strategy? That came out funny, didn't it?
I tend to focus on, I mean, visibility strategies there's about 30 odd things you can put in a visibility strategy. But if you try and do them all at once, then you don't do any of them well. So I tend to focus on around 2 to 3 every 90 days. So for the last 90 days, for example, I was doing sponsoring, speaking, and exhibiting. Whereas I might, for another quarter, I might just focus on attending events, but the right events. And it's not about, I have to say this regularly, it's not about going to the opening of an envelope. You need to be really strategic about which events you go to. And I love your growth event, because it's not what I call one of those big events. You can end up speaking to every single person in the room. You can have deeper conversations. Whereas if you're going to an event that's got 500, 1,000 people, you're only going to speak to a handful, especially if you're sat in the same place all day. You're not going to speak to more than a few people. So yeah, attending events if you're starting out, but be strategic. And just really try to take it one step at a time. Obviously social media, but not every platform. Just pick the one that you like. If it's so much easier to hang out and do things well if you're in a place you enjoy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And there's a lot of noise, isn't there, when a new platform, another, we should say, new platform get launches and everybody sort of, oh, I need to go over there, I need to play on this thing. And it's overwhelming and you end up doing nothing. I fell foul to that. I know I fell foul to that at the beginning. I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do the other. But it is much easier, isn't it, when you stick to the things that you, as you say, you enjoy doing. You're going to do them more often if you enjoy them, don't you? And it's interesting. I've been to all of these big events as well. I think we all have, and get some real value from them. I'm not against big events at all. But when you said you tend to just speak to a few people, they also tend to be the people that you already know, rather than connecting with new people. Whereas the smaller, more intimate events, you find yourself speaking to, of course, the people you know, because you want to say hello and catch up, but new people. And that's important, isn't it, for building
Well,
your.
yeah, and it used to surprise me when I was a solicitor. I'd go to events, networking events, and you'd see all the accountants sitting together from the same firm, all the solicitors sitting together from the same firm. And I used to go and sit at different tables. And I went to an event recently, and some of the women there said, will you come on our table? We're having a table together. I said, please don't be offended if I say no. I said, but I want to sit with people I don't know. I said, because I want to get the most from the event. Because every single event I go to, I have objectives, and I set those objectives before I go. Because some events are really expensive, and you want to know you're getting a return at some point on investment, for that. And I set a mini objective for every event. I need to speak to at least three new people. Three people I don't know. More is great, but if I haven't spoken to three people I don't know, then I haven't achieved my objectives.
Yeah, love that. And I think it's important to do that, isn't it? To set yourself objectives for everything you do, but specifically for going to events, because you do see a lot of people with the same people at all of the different events, which is lovely in some ways, but it's not building your business, is it? It's not building your business. So how do you help people in terms of helping to get them on stages?
All right, so I've got a membership and I've also got a 6 month experience that I do. And what we work on is we work on the speaking, we work on the confidence, we work on the mindset, we work on how to pull those stories into what you're sharing with the audience, how to have that message thread going right through, how to think on your feet, how to overcome the fears, how to present yourself, how to deal with if you forget the words, if you have that menopause brain or something like that. And but through practice and over time, I create the spaces for them to learn how to do that. And then I create the spaces for them to practice. And then I create the events to launch them. So I've just held recently an online summit, which gave people the experience of speaking on a summit. I've got events where people get and come and do a 5 minute slot on stage. I run my awards events, and my speakers for my awards events are my members and they have to audition. I make them pitch to me and I make them audition. So they're learning how to pitch, they're learning how to audition. I'll probably should call it casting call or something like that. But it's all really good experience because we never get to do those skills. We never get to do that. We never get to shown how to do things. So they're learning constantly, and then they can ask. And when they're practicing, the rest of the container, the rest of the group, feedback and give constructive feedback as well as me. So they're constantly evolving and learning through that process.
Yeah, and those sort of things are important, aren't they? The things that, like you say, you don't get taught how to do those little bits and pieces. One of the things I heard you say at the growth event, because you spoke at my last growth event, one of the things I heard you say, now I can't remember whether you said this when you were on stage or whether it was when somebody else was on stage, but you specifically said to any speaker, always hold the microphone even if you haven't got it switched on. And
Yeah.
it's those little snippets of information that help people to become better speakers, because that's giving them the photographs, isn't it? That this is me on stage type thing. So it's those little tiny snippets of information that I don't think we're ever taught.
No, no, because my view is if you're speaking at an event and you're just talking, you could just be standing up and saying, well, there's the fire doors and there's you could just, but if you've got a microphone in your hand, immediately, if there's a photograph of that, somebody else sees it and they say, oh, she speaks at events. It's marketing collateral and you're constantly gathering. And one of the things I say to any new business owner, have a proper email address, one that reflects your business, not a Hotmail or a Gmail, because there's too many spam emails using those. Have a really good headshot or professional photograph. And if you want to do speaking, get yourself a show reel or something, or build some collateral of you speaking, share it on your socials, and people can see that you are a speaker. And the other key thing I always say is nobody knows what's going to come out of your mouth. It's not like singing, which I've also had a go at.
You
Um,
have.
when you sing, it's got to be in tune. You've got to know all the words because 9 times out of 10, the audience know the words as well. And you've got to be in perfect pitch. When you speak, nobody knows what's going to come out of your mouth, so you don't have to remember the words. You haven't got to be in tune because it's your voice. It can be at any range at all. And you haven't got to be pitch perfect because, speaking is a natural thing and that's how the connections are made.
Absolutely. And nobody knows if you've missed a piece out.
Hmm.
Nobody
Not
knows if you've missed a piece out, which is good. What do you think stops people from putting themselves forward to go and speak on stages? Because there's so many people I've spoken to over the years that have said, "Oh, I'd love to do that, but I don't think I'm quite ready." What do you think that is? What's stopping that?
It's because they haven't been given the skill set and the tools to realize that everybody's got a story. Or the biggest fear for some people is I'd love to be like you, or I'd love to do what you do, but they think they're going to get it wrong. They think they're not good enough. They think nobody wants to listen to what they say. They think they're going to forget what to say, um, and it's like imposter syndrome in a way. And to get over that, it's just really learning the tools, because I teach the tools and techniques to overcome that and make them realize that actually their message needs to be heard. And I always say, if you can inspire one person in the audience to take action, job done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said that earlier on in this conversation that the first time you spoke, that you sent people to sleep, and you were like, what have I done? That's part of the process, isn't it? Knowing that you are going to potentially be disappointed with what you have delivered. Those people in the audience perhaps wanted a little snooze, so you perhaps did them a favor. You don't know, do you? But yeah, it is, I suppose, something that the more you do as well, the more confident you'll become, but you've got to give it a go in the first place. But people can come and work with you without spending thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to learn some of those basic skills, can't they? Through some of your.
Absolutely, I run workshops, not so often now, and then I've got the membership, and we do some speaking in there, and there's some training in there, and they just get to have a go, you know.
Exactly.
And that's the summit that I delivered. Many of those speakers had never spoken before, and they were nervous, but they were all supporting each other, so which was great, which gave them confidence. And we've recorded it all. I've given them some constructive feedback, and therefore next time they do it, they won't be as nervous because they've already done it once.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your celebrations. What are you doing this year to celebrate this 10-year birthday?
Right. Well, I'll admit something. It was the 10th anniversary of my awards last year.
Uh-huh.
So, because my first one was in year zero, so it was the 10th awards last year. So we did do a celebration then. And I invited all the people that had previously won awards. If they wanted to bring their award on the day, we'd have a big photo on stage, and we'd have glass awards everywhere, which we did, which was lovely. So we had a big celebration for that. And then I forgot about my 10th anniversary because it's in January, the anniversary, I sort of, with Christmas getting in the way, I sort of forgot. So it sort of went a bit flat. So I'm going to think of some things I can do this year to mark the occasion, because I think it's really important that I talk about it, because a lot of businesses don't see 2 years. And we know that. And there are tough times around at the moment. And I get startups come to me saying, I've been going 6 months, I'm thinking of giving up. And I say, it takes, you need to get past that 2 year mark. You're still evolving, you're still growing, you're still tweaking things. And to get to 10 years is a real milestone, and not every business achieves that. Um,
Absolutely. And not a lot of businesses have still got the same mission. If they have continued, they may have pivoted completely. Whereas,
yeah.
yes, you've evolved and yes, you've added new things in as you and your skill set, and the need from other people has changed, but you have still got the exact same mission. What you are doing now is exactly the same as you were back then, just in different ways, isn't it?
Yeah, and I published 4 books early on in the business. So I did one in 2018, one in 2019, 20, and 21. So we published two during the pandemic. Um, but I always wanted to do book five. So book five, they're compilation books. They're my members. They've all written a chapter. So book five will be coming out as a part of the 10th anniversary celebration. So there are some little subtle things going
Little
on.
subtle things, a book, very little and very subtle. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. So tell us a little bit about your awards.
Well, the awards are there, and that it's to encourage women to nominate themselves. There's no point waiting for somebody else to nominate you. And my awards are unique, and I've evolved those over time. So there are no categories, because I believe when you enter awards, if you see a load of categories and you don't fit one, you either don't enter, or you shoehorn yourself into a category that isn't quite right for you, so you don't show yourself off at your best. So I stripped away the categories. It's an administrative nightmare, but I believe it's the right thing to do. So every woman who enters as herself, and she can show up as the best version of herself. And they're not judged purely on financials. They're judged on passion, storytelling, your why, your values, and we've I've inbuilt into the process a real value piece. So just by going through the questions, you can sit back and you'll have done probably a 2 or 3 hour reflection piece on your business, which some people never do. And so many women have told me that by just going through the process each year, and they look back on a previous year, they then see how far they've come, and they're encouraged to recognize their achievements and celebrate them.
Which is amazing and totally different, isn't it? As you say, normally there's categories and you've got to shoehorn yourself into those categories. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that you keep that open, but how you manage that, I don't know. But hey, that's your problem.
And the other thing is that every woman in the room gets to go on stage, because there were so many awards I entered for myself, and you got shoved an envelope with a certificate in it, and only the winner got to celebrate on stage. Every single person who enters my awards that's in the room gets their moment on stage, gets a photographed by the photographer, which we give them, and they get to feel part of the experience. Everyone's made to feel a winner on the day.
Which is important, isn't it? Because just entering an award, you're a winner at that point, aren't you? Because you've
Yes, yeah,
taken that step to put yourself in for something. So,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely love that. Okay. What I always do when we get to the end, and I know we can sit here and talk all day, is I ask my guests to share with us a top tip around their area of expertise. So, what would you share with our guests?
I think it would have to be, don't be afraid to come across as yourself. Sometimes we try and hide bits of ourselves because we feel that other people won't be interested, but actually you might share something that could be the one key piece of inspiration for somebody else. I always say never share anything you wouldn't want to see on the front of a newspaper. That's my guiding principle.
Good point. Good point. We're going to share all of your links and everything about you in the show notes, but just tell us where's the best place for people to come and learn more about you.
Everything is on my website, absolutely everything, which is Woman Who. That's woman, not women. It's womanwho.co.uk, and everything is there, the awards, the events, everything.
Okay. And I'm correct in saying the awards are open right now?
They are open for entry right now. They open twice a year. I've got the Woman Who Achieves Awards, which are open during the first part of the year. And then later on in the year, during the summer, we open the Solopreneur Awards.
Amazing. Obviously, it depends on when you listen to this, but if you're listening to this as it comes out, they are open right now. So go and have a look and get yourself nominated. Sandra, it has been lovely chatting to you. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have. It's been great. In fact, I forgot we were on a podcast.
Well, that's good then. That's how I like it to be. So thank you so much for joining us. It has been amazing chatting to you, and to everybody else listening, thank you. We will see you next time.